But this is basically a a symbolic statement. Ki this is basically why we all like God or worship God basically. This is a symbolic statement. So just to start with, I will just write. What?
I wanted to understand why it was like
Will come. That's example, right? I mean, why X like Y, right? I mean, sorry, थोड़ा पीछे जा रहा हूँ.
मैं तो उस मूवी से सिनोनिम कर लिया था what women like.
ठीक है. So explanation इसका अभी दे देते हैं generally that pink, if you follow the standard electromagnetic spectrum, right? Pink comes around in the lighter side, and so pink for women and black for basically black or blue. So this black or blue, and this is there is a research statistical result that men tends to more like this black and blue colors generally, tanning jeans, whatever, and women's Barbie doll, pink, anything pinkish on the lighter side. So basically this is the darker shade and the lighter shade, right? And generally, क्या है? कुछ questions है? So generally, basically this is the lighter shade and the darker shade. The point is, evolution-wise, what happened that early in the part of evolution, that I mean, if you draw evolution like this is evolution, and then social engineering happens in the early 19th century, 20th century. So big part of the evolution was basically very uncontrolled. As a part of the uncontrolled evolution process, what happened that initially, and the position for initially what happened?
across that.
So initially, what happened that women's have been given a job of basically picking, for example, agricultural, for example, cereals, right? So they're giving a selective job कि भाई इससे निकालो कौन अच्छा है कौन basically all this housekeeping job, evolution wise, and men are giving that is there a deer going on in a basically object wise. So men are in a, maybe whatever background that could be deer is roaming in a forest or whatever that thing. So generally the object recognition stuff is much more strong generally in men, evolution wise, and basically it corresponds to spotting something on a black and whatever, something. But women are more tuned towards grafting stuff and picking up the right one, and it basically means that initially what happens that the colors, the light colors, light colors actually point, light colors symbolizes a healthy thing in general. That doesn't mean that black is not healthy, but light basically means it's healthy, and it also basically entails a degree of mate selection. That in not a lot of cases, for example, if there is a degree of fairness involved, and how do you define fairness, right? So fairness we define the whiteness, the complexion, all those things. So what happened? Think about a disease called anemia, right? So what happened that in anemia, your skin color actually changes because of the blood, whatever the problem is, right? And there are a gamut of other disease. For example, liver dysfunction. You get this jaundice thing, and a lot of things actually you can visually determine with a certain level of fuzziness from your skin color. So initially, what happened that our initial part of evolution, which is uncontrolled, itna social interaction tha nahi, matlab jitna aa jaye. So the mate selection was important part. I mean, how do you select a healthy mate? More importantly, the visual appearance of projection was basically a skin color one of the parameter, and skin color used to determine ki bhai my mate is going to be healthy, and the childbirth would going to happen subsequently would be a healthy child in basically. But and so this is basically a kind of a automatic selection procedure which is nothing related to the natural selection in general, Darwinian natural selection, but it's basically a kind of a strategy. You'll say a shortcut strategy. By skin color देखो अच्छा है, So probably the chances of getting these diseases, anemia, liver dysfunction, there are other diseases also, which you can find later. So chances of having is less. So this is one of the strategies that the natural selection didn't give us. It's basically a social evaluation and the early evaluation give us. Natural selection is very different. This is very different from natural selection. But this is basically so this is basically the another important point is that when your skin color and anything which is light tend to have less parasite, less microbes. So this less factor thing, right? This is fuzziness corresponds to the light factor, which tends to have, which is statistically observed. And black things, if you consider anything black, which basically have a kind of a dirtiness, more bacteria, nasty things, foul things, and stuff like that. So this
politically incorrect topic.
correct. Sure. So this like thing, whatever you like, this likeliness, it actually has been reinforced by this simple what do you call it? Evolutionary equation, like evolution differ plus a degree of social engineering, right? So whatever we like as a part of the early evaluation, when it was some early evaluation, skin color was supposed to be good, lightliness is good. So all these attributes, these traits, has been actually mapped to the genes somehow, right? Not exactly through natural selection, but at level, gene level, it's got mapped. And then this mapping was reinforced further by the social engineering, which is a very late phenomenon and early, started from 1920s century when science, arts, development of daily work. So this thing has been reinforced further engineering. Sorry, even.
So, pretty good.
So social engineering is further reinforced the thing, and whatever this pink color likeliness or whatever for men also the blue likeliness. For example, there's something universal about it, and universal basically means common evaluation. Right. Generally, for example, if I draw this thing, it's very common. And if I give two options, one is KIRK and one is Bob, and try to ask you as associate these two words, these two picture, which you will associate? I'm just asking.
Bob is B.
Bob is A.
Bob is A.
Bob is A.
Yeah.
Kirk is this. And astonishingly, 95% people does the same thing somehow, which I found very astonishing. So it's not about that there is a sharp edge is there and K somehow mimics that sharpness and B is kind of blunt and points this bluntness of the thing. But actually this is a social evaluation that the early evaluation that actually in our genes. So it's not so this likeliness that something that is I like pink or I like blue or I like whatever X like Y. It's basically all subconsciously